By the time Eli Krause dragged the first feed sack into the garden center, the bottom seam was already leaking. Not grain, not seed. Black dirt. It spilled in a slow, heavy line across the concrete floor, dark enough to stain the dust like ink. The manager looked at the torn sack, then at Eli's mud-caked boots, then at the folded lab sheet in his hand. And Eli said the one thing nobody in Denton County expected from a 17-year-old standing beside a ruined bag of swamp muck. "I've got 36 acres of this." 6 months earlier, that same ground had been written off as a problem. Not a bad field, not a poor field, a problem. The tract sat behind the Krause place outside Beaver Ridge, Missouri, where pasture gave way to cattails, and cattails gave way to a low black ribbon of standing water that stayed there from March until late summer. 36.4 acres on the county map. To Eli's father, before the stroke, it had been the back lowland. To his mother, Ruth, it was the part they still had after losing the good ground. To the bank, it was nothing. Literally nothing. Ozark Valley Farm Credit sent a valuation letter in February of 2016. The corn bottom that touched the highway had already gone at auction for $6,870 an acre. The hayfield brought less, but still enough for men in press jackets to nod and write quickly. Then they reached the wet tract. The appraiser did not walk it. He stood at the fence line with clean boots and lifted his clipboard just high enough to shield his face from the wind. No agricultural recovery. No timber grade. No practical collateral value. He marked the box, $0 per acre. That was how land disappears without moving. A stranger writes a sentence. A family stops arguing with it. And a place that has held water, roots, frogs, seeds, and 50 years of weather becomes a blank space in somebody else's math. Ruth kept the letter in a blue folder beside the electric bill. Eli read it twice the night it came. Not because he thought the bank was wrong. Because some part of him wanted to understand how 36 acres could become nothing while still soaking through his socks every morning. He had been walking that lowland since he was small enough to think cattails were taller than trees. His grandfather used to take him out there before breakfast, one hand on a hickory cane, the other pointing at things Eli was too young to care about. Where the water held longest, where the sedge turned blue at the root, where the frogs started first in spring, where the mud smelled sharp, and where it smelled sweet. His grandfather kept a pocket notebook wrapped in duct tape. Most of it was weather and chores. Rain on Easter, fence down west side, calf lost in high water, fuel filter clogged again. But one page had a line Eli never forgot. Black layer under the cattail mat is better than manure if you can dry it. At 10, that sounded like old man talk. At 17, after the bank put a 0 on the place, it sounded different. But the rest of the county had already decided. At Milligan Feed, men leaned on the counter and talked about the Krause lowland, the way people talk about a truck with a blown motor. Drain it if you had money. Fill it if you had a miracle. Forget it if you had sense. One neighbor offered Ruth $700 for the whole tract, saying he'd take the mosquito patch off her hands before the county started complaining. A real estate agent suggested donating it for a tax deduction, then lowered his voice as if he were offering kindness. Sometimes the cheapest land to own is land you don't own anymore. Ruth folded the listing papers and put them back in her purse. Eli said nothing. That was his habit. He listened more than he answered, which made adults confuse him with empty space. At school, he was the boy with mud on his jeans who helped in shop class and went home before basketball practice. He was not loud enough to be impressive. He was not polished enough to be underestimated dramatically. He was just easy to overlook. So was the land. And maybe that was why he kept going back to it. In late April, after 3 days of rain, Eli found the first patch that changed the story. He was not looking for money. He was looking for a fence staple his mother had dropped from her coat pocket near the south corner. The water there was shallow, barely over the soles of his boots, but the ground underneath gave way like bread dough. He stepped wrong, sank to his ankle, and pulled his foot out with a sound so thick it made him laugh. The mud came up black, not gray, not clay brown, not the sour greenish muck from the ditch. Black. It clung to his boot in heavy folds, full of shredded roots and tiny shell fragments. When he scraped it with a stick, it broke apart in soft crumbs instead of smearing like paste. Eli crouched. Then he dug with both hands. Under the live roots was a dark layer nearly 18 inches deep, cool and fibrous, packed beneath the cattail mat like a secret floor. He filled an old coffee can, then another, then a 5-gallon bucket with a cracked lid. By supper, Ruth found 3 buckets lined up behind the washroom, each one labeled with masking tape. South Pocket. Willowhead Old Spring Run. She looked at the mud, then at Eli. You starting a collection? He pulled his grandfather's notebook from his back pocket and opened to the line about the black layer. Ruth read it slowly. Neither of them smiled. Hope was too expensive for that. The next week, Eli used the library computer in Salem to search for wetland soil, humus, peat, organic matter, greenhouse mix, and every dull term that led to another dull term. That was the first surprise. The thing the bank called unproductive had a name: muck soil, sapric material, wetland humus. In some places, people bought it by the cubic yard. Not because it was pretty, because it held water, because it carried nutrients, because greenhouse growers mixed it into weak sandy soil to keep young plants alive. Eli printed 3 pages from extension bulletins and paid 12 cents each at the library desk. He underlined one phrase until the paper nearly tore. High Organic Matter Amendment. That phrase did not sound like a miracle. It sounded like a product, and that made it dangerous. Because a miracle only has to be believed. A product has to be tested. By May, Eli had borrowed a soil auger from his agriculture teacher and divided the deepest part of the lowland into a grid with orange flags and baling twine. 25-foot intervals, 9 sample rows, 4 depth marks per hole. He wrote everything down because his grandfather had written everything down. Color, smell, root fiber, water level, pH strips, weight before drying, weight after drying, what crumbled, what clumped, what turned sour when left in the sun. When he did not understand a result, he did not pretend he did. He called the county extension office twice and asked questions so plain the woman on the phone eventually stopped, sounding impatient. Then he mailed 6 samples. 2 to a soil lab in Springfield, 1 to a compost outfit near Cape Girardeau, 1 to a greenhouse supplier in Illinois, 2 to nobody important at all, just sealed jars he kept on the kitchen shelf so he could compare them later. The postage cost him $51.40. Ruth wrote it in the ledger as Ailey soil. The first lab report came back with numbers he did not know how to feel about. Organic matter, 18.6%. pH, 6.4. Potassium, high. Phosphorus, moderate high. Soluble salts, acceptable if blended. The second report tested 2 cores at 21 and 24% organic matter. The compost company sent a shorter reply. Good dark material. Needs drying, straining. Potential bulk interest if consistent. Potential. That word did not buy groceries, but it was not 0, and for the first time since the auction, 0 was not the only number in the room. Eli started small because small was all they could afford. He cut 4 squares of hardware cloth from a broken rabbit hutch and nailed them across a wooden frame. He set the frame over a wheelbarrow, shoveled wet muck onto it, and shook until his shoulders burned. At first, nearly everything went wrong. The roots tangled, the clay pockets smeared, the screened material stayed too wet, the first tarp split in a thunderstorm. A raccoon walked through one drying batch and left perfect handprints across 20 pounds of product Eli had spent half a day making. In June, a storm pushed water across the lowland and lifted 2 of his orange flags clean out of the ground. The pile behind the barn turned soupy overnight. His mother found him at dawn trying to save it with a feed scoop and a snow shovel. "Eli," she said, not unkindly, "you are fighting a swamp." He did not look up. "No. I'm learning when it moves." That answer stayed with her, not because it was dramatic, because it sounded like his grandfather. By the end of the month, Eli had changed the process. He stopped digging the wettest holes and worked the shoulder of the black layer, where the material lifted heavier but dried cleaner. He built a slanted screen from scrap angle iron and a salvaged mower spring. He mixed finished batches at 1 part humus to 3 parts sandy loam in cut milk jugs and planted radish seed, lettuce seed, and tomato starts from the discount rack at Harbin's nursery. The garden store potting mix sprouted first. His mix caught up by day 9. By day 14, the leaves in Eli's jars were thicker, darker, and harder to wilt. He took pictures with Ruth's old camera and taped them into a binder. Not beautiful pictures, useful ones, root mats, side-by-side jars, dry weight notes, dates written in block letters. At school, he used the project for his final agriculture presentation. He brought in 2 bags, one of dried screened humus, one of ordinary creek sand blended with it. His teacher gave him an 88 and wrote, "Good effort. Practical use unclear." 3 boys in the back called it swamp dirt. Eli carried the bags home on the bus. He did not answer them either. But that night in the barn he poured the screened black material through his fingers and said something his mother heard from the doorway. They keep naming it after where it came from, not what it does. The first sale almost did not happen. Harbin's nursery sat 43 miles away, outside Mountain View, with a gravel lot, 2 hoop houses, and a hand-painted sign that leaned whenever the wind came from the west. Eli had called 3 times before anyone agreed to look at a sample. On July 11, Ruth drove him there in the old white Dodge with no air conditioning and a passenger window that only rolled halfway down. In the truck bed were 6 feed sacks, each one stenciled by hand with the words, "Krau's Black Humus Blend." The manager, a woman named Linda Harbin, met them behind the hoop house. She was not impressed at first. People brought her miracle dirt every spring, river silt, worm castings, compost that still steamed for all the wrong reasons. She cut 1 sack open with a pocket knife and pinched the material between her fingers. Then she stopped talking. She smelled it, crumbled it, spread it over a tray of dry nursery soil, and watered it with a hose. The water did not run straight through. It held. Linda looked at the lab sheet, then at the tray, then at Eli. "How much can you make without selling me mud?" That was the first serious question anyone had asked him. Eli had an answer ready. Not a perfect answer. Not a big answer, a real one. 3 yards this month, maybe 5 if it stays dry. Screened to 1/2 inch. No fresh cattail root. I can blend or sell straight. Linda bought 2 yards at $52 a yard. She paid with a business check and wrote soil amendment trial on the memo line. Ruth did not cry in the truck. She drove 3 miles in silence, pulled into the lot of a closed church, and put the check on the dashboard. $104. Against debt, it was nothing. Against zero, it was a crack in the wall. By August, the work became a system. Dig before the heat, dry under the barn roof, screen in the afternoon, blend at night when the insects came thick around the light. Eli learned that the swamp could not be forced. If he cut too deep, the material turned sour. If he dried it too fast, it crusted and trapped moisture underneath. If he let clay into the batch, growers complained the mix tightened in pots. Every mistake had weight. Every weight went in the notebook. He tracked batch loss at 27% in early August, then brought it down to 16%. He learned which pocket produced cleaner humus after rain, which one needed a week of sun, which dark layer looked rich but tested weak. Ruth worried about the county. Standing water meant mosquitoes, and mosquitoes meant notices. When a neighbor complained, the health inspector came out with a clipboard, and the same cautious boots every official seemed to own. He warned Ruth about unmanaged water. Eli showed him the drainage map, the sample grid, and the mosquito control log. He had added biological dunks to the old tire ruts and cleaned the ditch mouth below the willow break. The inspector stared at the pages. Then he wrote, "Active management observed." It was not praise, but it was not a fine. That summer, the lowland did not become valuable all at once. It became harder to dismiss. Harbin's ordered 4 more yards. A greenhouse near Willow Springs tested a blended batch for seed starts. A landscaper bought 20 sacks, complained about the plain packaging, then came back for 30 more because his raised bed customers liked the texture. By the end of the first season, Eli had sold 11.5 cubic yards and 94 sacks. Gross sales, $1,980. Net after fuel, bags, hardware cloth, lab fees, and 1 rented dump trailer. $1,186. Ruth used 300 of it to keep the propane account from falling behind. Eli bought a better shovel and a used cement mixer with a bad switch. The bank did not know any of this yet. That changed in October. A gray pickup from Ozark Valley Farm Credit stopped near the Krause mailbox just after lunch. A loan officer named Trent Mallory stepped out with a tablet under his arm and paused at the edge of the grass. He had come to verify land status for tax and insurance records. He saw the stacked sacks under the barn lean-to, the drying trays, the screened pile covered with canvas, the hand-painted sign Ruth had made on a piece of plywood. Krause Black Humus. Trent asked what they were selling. Eli told him. Trent smiled in the careful way adults smile when they think a child has made a craft project out of a financial disaster. "So you're bagging dirt?" Eli wiped his hands on his jeans. "No, sir. I'm processing a soil amendment." The smile thinned. Trent asked for records. Ruth brought the binder, lab sheets, invoices, deposit slips, batch logs, customer names, mileage, photos, extension notes, water management records. Not one grand argument. Just paper after paper proving the same quiet thing. The land had been working. The people with clean boots had not seen the work. Trent stood in the barn aisle longer than he meant to. He flipped to the Harbin's invoices, then to the greenhouse trial, then back to the lab report, showing 24% organic matter in the south pocket. Finally, he said the sentence Eli remembered for years. "Why wasn't this listed?" Ruth looked at him. "Because nobody asked what was under the water." That winter, the tax classification changed from waste lowland to specialty agricultural use on 7 active acres. Not the whole tract. Not a miracle appraisal. Not enough to save what had already been sold, but enough to put a number where the bank had left a hole. Assessed productive value, $4,900. The same land that had been marked 0 now had a category, a file, and a line in the county system that could not be laughed away at Milligan Feed. By spring of 2017, Eli was not just digging. He was managing. He left buffer strips for frogs and water flow, because stripping the whole wetland would have ruined the very process that made the humus. He harvested only the pockets that had built enough black layer. He rotated cuts, blended batches, and refused one nursery order because filling it would have meant taking material too wet and too young. That refusal did more for his reputation than a sale. Linda Harbin told 2 growers, "The kid won't sell bad dirt." Orders followed, 6 yards, then 12. Then a seasonal contract for screened blend at $48 a yard if supply tested clean. Eli finished high school without a speech, without a scholarship story, without a newspaper photo of him standing heroically in a swamp. Most people still drove past the lowland and saw cattails, but the growers saw the trays, his mother saw the ledger, the county saw a managed specialty use, and the bank saw enough to stop calling it dead ground. The biggest number came 3 years after the first torn sack, not from one check, from a stack of ordinary ones. By the end of the 3rd season, Crow's Black Humus had sold just over 118 cubic yards of screened material and more than 2,000 small sacks through 3 garden centers. After costs, repairs, hauling, bags, and lab tests, the wet tract had cleared a little over $21,000. That was not fortune money. It did not buy back the auctioned fields. It did not erase the stroke, the debt, the winter Ruth skipped dental work, or the years of hearing people talk about her land as if it were a disease. But it did something a one-time sale never could. It kept producing. Year after year, the lowland made its slow black layer under the cattails. Eli took some, left some, measured the rest, and learned that value is not always where the road is dry enough for officials to stand. On the wall of the barn, beside the old shovel with the bent socket, Ruth framed the original valuation letter, $0 per acre. Below it, Eli taped a new sheet, not a speech, not a revenge note, just numbers. Batch 14B, South Pocket, 22% organic matter, sold to Harbins, paid. The page made the letter above it look unfinished. Years later, when Eli's grandfather's notebook finally started coming apart at the spine, Ruth copied the line onto the inside cover of a fresh one. Black layer under the cattail mat is better than manure if you can dry it. Eli added one sentence under it. The land was never empty. Most mornings, he still walked the lowland before work. He checked the water edge, listened for frogs, pressed his boot into the black ground to feel how much spring the soil had in it. From the road, the place still looked like a patch of trouble. Too wet, too rough, too easy to dismiss. But under the sedge, under the still water, under every official word that had tried to flatten it into nothing, the meadow kept doing what it had always done. It gathered what others dropped, broke it down, held it, darkened it, waited. The bank had valued the land by where a plow could go. Eli valued it by what the water had been making all along. And that was the secret the clean boots missed. The meadow had been working the whole time.